All right, like people, thank you for your patience. As you know, you all have papers coming up. A couple of you all have sent me drafts. I hope to see some more from others. As we go into these final stages, before we get into the lecture, I want to go over the expectations again for the paper and then the presentation itself. The presentation, like I said, it should just be, a layout of the paper. So you don't want to overcomplicate this. I think it is something that you want to prepare for, though. And more than anything else, just have a strong clarity of what you want to include in these components and how you're going to be graded accordingly. So again, first off, make sure, we look at the page limit. Don't feel like you have to go over 25 pages or up to, just don't exceed that. Just don't exceed that. If it's possible for you to be able to communicate these ideas in 15 pages, feel free. Don't just try and get the ideas, out of the way, make sure it's really thorough with your explanation and what you're trying to break down. But it doesn't, it doesn't require you to stretch it out to 25 pages. So do keep that in mind. If you do get close, if you're getting towards the completion of your paper, and hopefully you're working on this now, and you see that you might exceed 25, give me a shout and I can show some flexibility with this. I don't want you writing me novels or nothing, so we will have to have some limitations, but I'd rather you communicate some really dope ideas rather than limit the pages. So if you think it's getting close, let me know as soon as possible, but otherwise try and keep it modest in that regard. Make sure again, so usually for the previous assignments, I've not required title pages and the like. There will be some required here. Please, 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 please make note of the APA formatting. There's a few different sources that you all can check out. One that I have utilized in previous assignments and that I still use for me is Purdue OWL, which will guide you on that in terms of like how to and please take some of this stuff down as notes as we go through. Don't just wait for the lecture. Please, please, please listen up for this as well. So Purdue OWL is the source, but there should be many, including your textbook, that can guide you on how to utilize APA. As I say there, do not exceed 10 quotes, use them like spices, and make it usually a quote where the author is saying something or communicating something, more effectively than you feel like you can, particularly if it's something empirical. One of the things that's been lacking so far is having sufficient data to support some of the claims that we're making in our hypotheses. So if an author communicates something like that, there's fair game for a quote. But again, you want to use those very sparingly, and please make sure that you cite them properly in APA format. As you see here in breaking down the points, and please take this seriously. Most of you all are in very good shape in terms of your grade, but as you see here, there are plenty of points remaining on this assignment, the final presentation, and we haven't even gotten to the pop quiz yet. When could that be? So still a lot of points remaining, so please stay ready. So proper formatting, APA, and most of y'all have done this before, is there, and speak honestly with me, what is y'all general comfort level? Do you all feel comfortable working with APA so far? And Latasha sent me an email, but Diamond, need you to get on camera and stuff, young lady. But what's your general comfort level working with APA? Anybody? Come on. Janai says, good. Have you worked with, let me ask it this way. Has anybody worked with APA before this class? Has anybody worked with APA before this class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic. And again, it's not, easy. I still even me and having to do research and reading research quite a bit. I still have to rely on those guidelines and stuff. It's not like I have that stuff just all memorized in my head. And it's a lot of different styles that you'll probably come in contact with in graduate school and stuff. But just, so just use the guidelines to help you with that. But don't wait till the last minute on it. Make sure your writing is clear. Again, most of you all write very effectively. but we all could use some help and assistance. So please utilize the Writing Center in terms of getting some help with that stuff. Don't wait till the last minute to go and seek them out. And the more developed your draft is, the better feedback they can give you. But just, again, be mindful about the typos and the grammatical errors and things like that. You will be graded for that accordingly. So please make sure that that's tight. By and large, so far, you all haven't had tremendous issues in that regard. The clarity and originality of your thesis, again, you got your thesis done already, right? So just put, again, the way it's been worded in all of these assignments so far, just put that in the paper. And then the main things, and please hear me out here, the main things that you're going to be putting into this paper is how well your thesis is supported by primary and secondary scholarly sources. Diamond, what's your thesis again? What's your hypothesis?
The parental income, education level, and stress level will best explain the different levels of educational development between female-headed and male-headed single-parent households in the United States.
Hey, say it for me one more again.
The parental income, education level, and stress level will best explain the different levels of educational development between female-headed and male-headed single-parent households in the United States.
Okay, good. And again, we've gone through a lot of these. You've had a lot of good sources. I hope you've been able to gather some more since our last individual meeting. And the main things you're going to be doing with those sources is pulling out information that speaks to the role that the education of the father may play in this circumstance, the role that, income of the mother may play in this circumstance. Not every article and every source is going to cover that perfectly, but they should be able to tell you something about that. And again, keep in mind, our goal is not to prove our hypothesis is correct. It's just to show what evidence supports or rejected. So some of the information from the articles is going to say, no, parental income doesn't have anything to do with this. Others will say, well, no, in these circumstances it do. So your task is to go through that data and try and parcel out how it fits into your claims. As I've said throughout, that's not an easy thing to do. So that's not something you got to do by yourself. That's again where I can help, but I can only help. I can't do it for you. You got to start doing the heavy lifting yourself. And then I can come in and help you, particularly in terms of how you want to write it into your paper. I think that's the biggest challenge. I think you all have done a solid job once you've taken time to engage the material to be able to see okay, this is saying this is saying this, but how we want to write that in social research, that can be a challenge. So again, I've gotten some of you all, I know owe me rough drafts this week, so I'll be looking out for those. Please, please, please really take time to develop them. It ain't got to be perfect, but the more you put into it, the better feedback you can get, and the easier the final paper and presentation will be. Next, make sure again you speak to how your topic relates to previous research on this topic. That Janaya, other people have studied suicide and how it may be related to income, but they may not have looked at how COVID impacts it. They may not have looked at, and then unfortunately, this probably may not be the last pandemic we have. So this research could be instructive for when we come around this turn next time. I was looking out my window just yesterday, and moving people was coming from my neighbors and everything, and even after everything we've done, everything we've been through. Okay, if you want to get a vaccine, cool. It's a little annoying that people don't want to wear their mask, but there's still people out here sneezing and not covering their damn mouths. Oh my God! So I say all that to say that we're probably going to come back. It's probably going to be something else again in a few years. I really hope I'm wrong. But in all seriousness, your research can be potentially instructive for that pattern. And, it can maybe help people prevent suicide in the future. Write these things down, Janai. When you're talking about the purpose and background of why your research is important, it's stuff like that anybody could potentially fall into low income. Anybody could potentially feel depressed and isolated from a pandemic. It looks like this is only important to the low income people now, but it's your task, Janaya, to show why it's important to people that may not be directly affected, and it is. Again, none of these things are easy, but I want you to use your critical thinking hat and use the research that you've already been exposed to help you do that. And then finally, the method. And then for this particular class, what's the primary method we're using again? What's the primary method we're using?
Secondary.
Data analysis.
Good. So again, there's a lot of different methods that you all have been exposed to in this class and in others. A lot that you'll probably use when you go onto your graduate programs and when you become Dr. Thomas. But for the time frame that we're working with here, you're just looking at secondary data, and you're going to look at what those sources say in terms of the role that the structure of the single parent household has on the child's educational attainment. And then finally, like I said, why is this important to people beyond your personal interest in it? Think about this for a moment. When we come back towards the end, once I get through with the full lecture, I'm going to ask you all to address this more deeply of why, again, if I'm not directly affected by these issues you're studying, why should I care exactly? Again, make note, you all have been given an extension on this, April 22nd. So it is not due, don't freak out, Latasha. It is not due on Thursday. It will be due promptly on April 22nd. So please, please, please do not wait till the last minute. Please. This is not an assignment that is conducive for that. Are there any questions about this at all? Anything that I may have covered, anything that I didn't cover? Any questions at all about the construction of the paper, particularly what you want to put in the paper? As you work through this, if any questions come to mind, don't hesitate to let me know. Let me talk briefly about the presentation. And everybody can see my screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And again, some of the same things here. So please, again, as you structure your presentation, and you should be working on this in conjunction with your paper. Again, the presentation is just going to be an abbreviated visual presentation of the longer document that you're going to give to me next Thursday. So you want to make sure, again, that your question is clearly stated. So one of the first things you want to do in the presentation is let the audience know what your research question is very explicitly. Then also, just speak briefly, as we just talked about, why is an important question, where again, clearly this issue is important to you, Latasia. Clearly, this may be important for single parents with children, Diamond, but why might it be important to the general public? And again, these are things that you can, I will challenge you to think through them, but you don't have to walk through by yourself. But it's getting late, so we got to, if we're going to schedule some time, we got to get it in quickly. Don't be trying to blow me up like the day before the papers do, young people. Again, I can help you, but the more time and space you got to work these things in, the better the help can be. And look closely at the comments that you've gotten already from your drafts. 6 points, again, you'll see this is the main thing. How you take the data from those sources that you've gathered, the quantitative and qualitative data that you've gathered there, and how will you apply and explain it to your particular research question or hypothesis. That's going to be the main brunt of the presentation. So most of your slides should be showing data that either supports or rejects your hypothesis. Are we clear on that? Unmute yourselves, please. We clear on that?
Yes.
I need to hear the church say amen on this one, man.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Okay, word. Wasn't too affirming, but I got it. I got y'all on tape now. And if it becomes unclear as you go through the process, again, I know it can be, trust me, I'm working on research right now myself. I know it can be hard to focus and hone all this information in. It'd be feeling very overwhelming at times. So again, if you need assistance, let me know, but just give me some time and space to help you as well. Again, make sure that your hypothesis is clearly stated. You did that weeks ago, so that should be no problem. And then again, focus back in, Diamond. Your conclusion is clearly given. So what should your conclusion be speaking to, young people? Anybody, what should your conclusion be speaking to?
A restatement.
Say it again, Ms.
Like a restatement of if our hypothesis is supported or unsupported.
Absolutely. One extra credit point, Janiyah. Very good. So we're simply whether or not your hypothesis is supported or not supported and why so. So again, you're going to go through all your data, all your findings, and then your conclusion is just going to summarize that. Again, if your hypothesis is rejected, it don't mean that you're a bad person. It's okay. What we're looking for is the truth. If the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not working effectively, we got to say that. Again, we're not interested in being right. We're interested in showing what is scientifically true. So keep this in mind. Then a couple of more points here, and please look at all of these as you prepare and hopefully practice your presentations.
This rubric is located on eLearning, right?
Make sure that again that so it's a little bit different since again we're on Zoom and everything, but do not be reading strictly to your presentation or reading like your PowerPoint. Like, please don't put up a PowerPoint and you just read that word for word. You're not going to get full credit for that. Still have some engagement. Try and talk to your audience. Try and maintain eye contact as best you can. Again, I know since we're virtual, it's a little bit more awkward. And definitely get yourself together because obviously you're going to need to be on camera that day. No exceptions. Again, you don't get your full credit here when you come in on camera. You're not going to be able to present it all that day. So also with that in mind, if you have any kind of technical issues, try and practice and get things in motion. Because usually, whenever there's a problem that may arise, there can be a solution found to it. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So Janiyah asks, is the rubric under resources on eLearning? Yes, it is. You can find your rubric there. So please look at this and the paper rubric closely, because sometimes, quite frankly, it looks like people just start writing these papers or doing these presentations without fully considering how they're going to be assessed on them. So take some time to look this over. I think it's pretty straightforward. And I'm expecting big things for everybody. You all have got some great questions. You got some great hypotheses. You got some great sources. The hard part, like I said, is digging into those sources. And this is not, I'm not suggesting that, at times you have to read, every page of a 25-page article per se. Get the information that now. Again, next year at this time, Janiyah, you're going to have to do that consistently. But it's going to be all fun things that you want to read about. So that'll make it a lot more enjoyable. But don't be bogged down by this process. Don't be intimidated by it. Again, if there are things that are, hard to understand, you ain't got to do that by yourself. You do have to do the reading by yourself. I can't do that for you, though. Oops, I'm sorry, y'all. This is not for y'all. Are there any questions about the presentation so far? Or the paper? Ms. Brisbane, you missed a bit, but please go back and look at this lecture. It's going to be recorded and posted on the course page as always. So please go back and check this out. A lot of really important and valuable information on here. Okay, young lady?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we talked about, quantitative research throughout. And that's mainly, again, what we're utilizing here because you're using secondary data analysis, utilizing empirical sources. So empirical basically means that we're going to be utilizing some kind of numbers. So most of your papers, especially for most of your research questions, I expect to see a lot of statistics and correlative numbers. Division, I would have seen statistics that showing the relationship between education levels and the propensity to stay or leave abusive relationships. Show that numerically. I should be able to see your sources where, again, the readers should be able to look and see, like I say all the time, right? Do your own research. You should present this information in a way where the reader can do that, where they can see everywhere that you got your information. We cannot take your word that that's being that having 4 children or more may make you more likely to stay in an abusive relationship, Davicia. We need to see what the patterns of social research show. However, you also within some of this data set will see some qualitative research as well. As always, you want to get a sense of what you want to know at the end of each chapter. And when you see something in italics, study that closely. Don't just try and memorize it. Make sure that you understand. I know everybody should fully be caught up with the reading by this stage. And have we had our second pop quiz yet? Huh? Have we? Have we?
No, sir.
Y'all, so if it's today, y'all ready for it, right? Huh? Huh? It ain't gonna be today, but y'all know we ain't got many days left. So please get ready, my people.
So it's any chapters that was covered after the last quiz, correct?
Yes, only the chapters since the midterm,
Okay.
which I think have been a little bit easier to follow than some of the earlier chapters. It's mainly been dealing with methodologies. So yes, only the ones and please look at the syllabus because not every chapter is assigned. As always, as you go through this chapter, make sure you know what you should know at the end of each chapter. You want to be able to discuss the research topics that are especially appropriate to field research, because not every topic will be. Like we talked about, like, your research, Davicia, that's looking like at abusive relationships, that's not going to be very, why, for one extra credit point, why would that not be conducive for field research? Why would studying abusive relationships be problematic for field research?
As far as if she's involved,
Say it again.
you said if she's involved in it?
No, anybody involved. We know Davicia ain't gonna be involved in nothing like that. But anybody, why would it be problematic for us to use a topic like physical abuse, domestic abuse for field research? What do we mean by field research? Y'all know this. What is it? Let's start there.
Observing without them, like, not saying really knowing, but like far as it just being observing method.
Good. Observing what? Like, well, give me a little bit more there. It's definitely related to observation.
Like interacting with the people and trying to understand, I guess.
How you gave your example when you was at the bar and you was writing notes and everything down without them.
Good. And what was I doing? Like, so.
Their behaviors, studying their behaviors.
And how is it different from some other observations that we made? One more part to it. So in that case, when I was doing my field research, my dissertation research at the bar, I was studying people in their real life environments.
You weren't including them. I mean, you were including them in it, but you weren't like letting them know like types of.
Right. So in this way, and Janiyah, Davicia, I'll give y'all an extra credit point for that. Like, so in this way, here's the main thing. You're studying like life as it actually happens. So it wouldn't be ethical for like you to be studying like domestic abuse, like as it's happening. Like you should get the person help. So a topic like that is like, now you can't really just sit there. Let me see what's gonna, like no. So there's some topics there, we'll talk about research ethics. We'll probably get into that Thursday and Tuesday, that there are ethics involved that just wouldn't allow you to study certain things. We also want to understand several paradigms. These are collection of theories that are used in field research. What does a theory do again? What does a theory do?
State the cause and effect.
Yes. So it helps to explain the cause and effect. It helps explain the cause and effect and a relationship between variables. Very good, Janiyah. We want to describe the process of conducting field research, the methods that we will use. We want to identify the strengths and weaknesses of field research, and then list the particular ethical issues involved, as I talked about, like with studying some really harmful behaviors in their natural environments. So generally when we're talking about field research, we want to look at topics that defy simple quantification. That when we talk about quantification, it's putting things into numbers. And again, as always, don't just take notes on what you see on the screen. Listen to both what your classmates and sometimes your professors say as well, that it can hopefully help aid our understanding with some of these concepts. So some topics that, you know, we can get by looking at numbers. Keep in mind, we talked about this at the beginning of the class, right? Like, you know, we can look at a person's health. Like, how can we quantify a person's health? What did we talk about with that before? What are some ways that we can look at your health by looking at numbers? And I'm always happy to hear from Janiyah. I want to hear from some more of y'all, but go ahead, Janiyah.
No, I'm okay.
How can we measure health by looking at numbers? Come on, y'all. What's a number that I can look at to determine a person's health?
Your blood pressure, your temperature.
Wait, say it again, Diamond. I'm sorry.
Blood pressure, temperature.
Good, excellent. Blood pressure, temperature, your weight, cholesterol level. Because as an asthmatic, they will measure my peak flow. So all these are ways that we can measure health by numbers. But that's not the only way to measure health, is it? So there are qualitative things that, you know, again, we may not be able to put numbers to. But, you know, like I can't put a number on this, Diamond, but I'm feeling more fatigued. I'm feeling just more run down. You know, so there are health aspects. So yes, Janiyah said that, yes, in the chat box, we can measure, we can count how many Red Bulls I have in a day. This is just my 1.5 so far, Janiyah, just 1.5 so far.
So proud.
I'm gonna try and ramp it down this week. And there are some attitudes and behaviors that are best understood in their natural setting that you can learn things about, like, you know, like single parent households by looking at numbers, but a lot of misunderstandings come just by looking at those numbers. And the way that we best understand them a lot of times is we would have to actually go into the home, and you might not be able, so you might be able to look at the income that this family has. You may be able to look at the amount of times that they've had to apply for federal aid. It doesn't tell you things about emotional support in this family. How do you measure that? How do you measure the love that these children get? How do you measure how this family builds up these children's self-esteem? Those are things that you can identify if you're actually in the household with this family, but getting access to that as researchers can sometimes be difficult. And then finally, like, you know, there are some topics where we need to look at over a long period of time that, you know, abuse is a topic, for example, where obviously there are specific incidents of abuse, but to really understand it fully, you probably need to look at it holistically. And a lot of times it can be difficult for us to get access to that as social researchers. These are the kind of things that I want you all to think about as we go forward. As I said, like, you know, in a class like this where we have an abbreviated time frame, and you all have so many other classes and things that you're trying to balance and juggle, you know, it's not going to be practical for you to, like, you know, utilize a lot of these methods during this session. But I feel very confident that when you go into grad school and you have to do a thesis requirement, and certainly if you go on to the PhD level, which I believe that many of you all will, these are some methods that I think that a lot of you all will probably end up employing. So I would encourage you to study them closely as we go forward. So again, very briefly, and I'm gonna get bumped out in a sec. So by my clock, I have 1:31. We're gonna get bumped out in a minute. I want us to log in using the same link at 1:45. At 1:45. But I got a few more minutes, so hang with me. So there are some elements of social life, again, that are appropriate to field research. So various practices, episodes that happen routinely in society, encounters, particularly with various groups. In principles of sociology, for example, which several of you all had with me, we talked about like roles and social types. And one of the ways that we know about that, so like in sociology, we talk about, the various leadership styles: instrumental, democratic, authoritarian. All of those different styles, like we've been able to study them in terms of in using social science research by studying like, a military, for example, and how those are structured. Studying like Wall Street law firm. Some of you all have taken social psychology with me before. And everyone has taken general psychology, and you've seen studies that have looked at social and personal relationships. And a lot of those type of things, for example, like how the relationship between like a mother and a daughter, and how there are patterns and cycles that hold true almost in almost any culture within these relationships. You can't fully understand those relationships though just by giving somebody a survey or even doing like, closed experiment. There are certain things that you can only really understand about human behavior by looking at it in a more extensive qualitative way. And this chapter is going to unpack how we go about doing that in a scientific manner. Because when we talk about observation and some other topics that are appropriate, when we talk about observation, please understand, it's not just observing something casually, it's observing something scientifically. Much like, again, we talked about this right where in the beginning of the class, obviously y'all have observed me drinking Red Bull a time or two. That is very different than and it's true, you have observed that. But a scientific observation would be keeping an accurate count of how many I drink, maybe doing some research on how much the average consumer of Red Bull drinks a day, and then be like, hey, I saw Dr. Muhammad drink 2.3 Red Bulls a day during the course of this semester. According to popular research, the average American only drinks, 1 Red Bull every 2 days. So I can make a conclusive statement that Dr. Muhammad is drinking too many Red Bull. That's different. That's, again, and this literal precision is very different than just saying simply he drinks a lot of Red Bull. Both things could be true. But in science, again, we're looking to be a lot more precise with our wording. We talked about this again, like if you go to the doctor, they can't tell you, hey, I just need you to take a few of these pills tonight and then let me know what happened. No, dog. We have to be very precise with our language in all areas of science. So we're saying, like, when we're studying organizations and we can say that, hey, this organization is discriminatory against women, we can't just make this claim like, haphazardly. We need to have some data to support that. And there'd be a lot of data out there to support things like that. So later, we'll leave with this very quickly. Again, I'm going to log back in at 1:45. That we oftentimes, again, make untested, non-scientific assumptions. Again, this is how most people talk. But what we want to look at is scientific, and what you're doing in your research is looking at scientifically tested observations. It's a difference. It's one thing to say that more Black people are killed by the police than compared to other racial, more unarmed Black people are killed at the hands of police compared to other groups. it's quite another thing to have, like, hardcore statistics and data, and maybe every now and again some video to support such a claim. I'm going to get bumped out in a second. So we'll pick up here at what time?
1:45.
I'll see y'all on the other side.